My name is Mensima. I'm a lecturer and a fashion designer, and I have a 3-year-old son. It was the last thing on my mind. I had missed my period. I was also not feeling too well, so I thought it was stress. And so when my husband suggested that we should test for pregnancy, in fact I laughed because I thought it was a joke, So we finally bought the kit. I tried at home and double lines. I was like, okay, we'll do a second test. So this time we went to the hospital, we did a scan, and I was about 6 weeks pregnant. I like the attention. Like anybody will do anything for you. Sometimes you are holding something which is not as heavy as probably you have thought it is, but then someone comes to, oh, don't hold this, don't hold this, you are treated like an egg, if I should say. So that was the enjoyable thing. I also didn't have morning sickness. I didn't experience throwing up, so that was enjoyable for me. So throughout the pregnancy, I had this very bitter taste in my mouth. Like throughout the pregnancy, even though I wasn't throwing up or I didn't have morning sickness, there was this bitter taste that wouldn't go away till some months or maybe a few weeks after I delivered. So the only thing that I could do to bring that bitter taste down was to eat a lot of pepper in my food. So my food was very spicy, and also chewing gum. So I had to be chewing gum, mint flavored gum. That was quite strong to at least give me some relief during the pregnancy. And then I also didn't like the name calling that went with pregnancy. Our society, I don't know, but you go out, you feel like, oh, you've dressed nice, you're looking nice, you're feeling yourself even though you're pregnant and everything, and then someone comes from somewhere and says abewa. I'm like, you just had to say that. And then also, one time you meet somebody and you're like, hey, and I want mesano. It doesn't, I didn't like that aspect of it. So maybe if I had any negatives, that would be it. And then I also had some pelvic pressure, pelvic pain, because my son was quite huge. But that was towards the latter part of the pregnancy. He was born at 38 weeks. So on a 37-week visit to the doctor, he mentioned that my son had grown well and he was growing at a very speedy rate. So I should just get prepared, and if things are favorable, conditions are favorable on my 38-week visit, he would induce. So induce labor. So I went prepared, hoping that things would be favorable because I was tired, and I was really hoping that he would come that day. So it was an induced labor. I was 38 weeks pregnant at that time. Labor was painful. Labor is not child's play. Labor, as for labor, it's a different level. And at a point, I was, you're so uncomfortable, even with the pain, and you want to probably get a position that will favor you to ease the pain a bit. But the midwife will tell you to lay on your back, because I had this gadget strapped around my belly to check the child's heartbeat. So I couldn't move as I wanted. Sometimes you want to just ease, you can't, you want to feel comfortable, but you are restricted. That's enough. That alone is enough pain. And then you are going through the pain. So labor was uncomfortable. It was painful. My husband, thankfully, was in the labor ward with me. So he was holding my hand. I was squeezing his hand. At a point, I was biting him. It wasn't easy, but eventually, yeah, we made it through. Hey, y'all. painful. Labor is painful. One thing I won't forget is, you know, when the contractions come and they ask you to push. You've seen it on TV. You've seen it. I don't know. You've heard stories about it, but it's a different ball game altogether. So you have to learn how to push from your stomach. It's not just about the shouting or the voice, but it has to. So I was there that they taught me that I had to push from my tummy and contract my tummy and push with the contraction. So you don't just push as you feel like pushing, but you have to wait for the contraction to come and then you push with the contraction. That was something new that I learned at the labor ward. First of all, when he came out, he wasn't crying. So it took maybe about a few minutes, seconds before he cried. So when he came out, the first thing I was thinking is, I hope he's fine, I hope he's okay. Because all the suffering, you should have something to hold on to, you know. So I was concerned that he'll be fine. And so he came out, it took a few minutes, they slapped his bum a bit, and then he cried. And then I was relieved. So it was more of the concern. And then they put him on me. And then I looked at him and I was like, oh, so it was you. And I was okay. I think it was mixed feelings. I was very thankful that the process was over. My child is fine. He's crying. So it was more of, I was thankful. I was very thankful to God. A whole lot of adjustments, especially when I have to go out or when I have to travel. I have to make sure that he's well catered for. He's in good hands. Because mothers, you want to have some time off. You want to have some time away, but it's like you don't even trust anybody with your child. You feel like nobody would be able to care for him like you do. But I've learned to sometimes just relax and allow other people to take over. So a whole lot of adjustments with events. I have to know maybe like a week ahead so I can plan for it. Sometimes even with church, you know, we dress up, we are getting ready to go, he eats, I feed him, he cleans up. By the time we are ready to go, we are late. So we end up staying home. But it's been an interesting journey. There have been a whole lot of adjustments. Surprises. I didn't know I was this strong, honestly, because we've had it hasn't been an easy road with him, and through it all, I can say I didn't know my own strength, you know, and I know definitely God gives the strength. But I remember when he was born, 3 days postpartum, he had a very high temperature. We had been discharged and everything. We were home. I was healing and I was getting used to my new status as a mother, you know. And then he had a very high temperature. We had to go to the hospital and stay for another 1 week. So whilst I was at the hospital, I mean, the first day we went there, I was crying myself, my son was crying. It was a very sorrowful sight, you know, and all the nurses were like, oh, he'll be fine, he'll be fine. And I was just crying. I don't know whether I was crying because of the pain I had gone through, the pain I was still in, or the whole emotional situation that was happening at the moment. So I was like, how are we going to survive in the hospital? I mean, family come and then they visit, and at the end of the day, they go away. So it's just left with you and your son, and then nurses that you barely know. So I had to be strong for my son, for myself. I had to assume responsibility, and that has been the surprise for me, because through my life, I can say that I haven't been as strong as I am now. So I think the whole experience has made me stronger. I didn't know I could do what I do now. No, not all the time. you try. It's like try and error. You try if it works and then you stick to it. But sometimes things that you also try that have been working for so long, all of a sudden it's not working anymore and you have to readjust. It's like you learn on the job. It's like something that you are doing whilst you are still learning. So most times you don't feel like you know what you are doing, but it turns out fine. I can say that it gets better along the way, but initially it was tough. It was very tough. The main reason I think why we ended up in the hospital with a high temperature was because he wasn't getting enough food, enough fluids into his system. And even after we spent that 1 week in the hospital, we had to go back again for another episode, and it wasn't fun. So initially, newborns can sleep for a very long time. So I thought when they are asleep, I also sleep. I also catch up on things that I have to do. But I learned the hard way that whilst they are sleeping, when their time for feeding is up, you have to pick them gently and then breastfeed. You have to pick them gently, breastfeed, make them burp, and then you put them down. So my sleep, I would say, was interrupted a whole lot because I had to be very serious about breastfeeding, waking him up almost every 2 hours, every 3 hours just to feed him. So it had to go on throughout the day, even at night. So I wasn't having as much sleep as I would have probably wanted. But it got better when he started feeding on solid food. With that, he was able to drink some water and he was able to breastfeed at night as well. But my son didn't really like the bottle, feeding with a bottle. So I had to be breastfeeding him almost every time. But now that he's 3, we sleep through the night and we are fine. It's surprising how I managed to juggle all the responsibilities that I have, and the strength that comes with it, So as a lecturer, you have to still be learning on the job. You have to go for conferences and workshops and better yourself, So motherhood and work and all that, it's surprising that I'm able to do all that by God's grace, actually. So initially it was tough. Like I mentioned, I had to go to work with my son. When the 3 months was over, I was taken into work together with a nanny. And so it wasn't easy combining work with having to do intermittent breastfeeding here and there, coming back home tired and all that. So yes, I'm back to work, but initially it wasn't easy. Now it's fine because he's 3 years, he's in school. So we are both living our own separate lives, Yes. Scary moments, yes. We've had scary moments. I mean, even recently, was it last week or something? He was so excited. He was running around, and by the time I heard the kum, like one of the mothers said, and I was like, I hope it's not my son who has fallen. At that time, I wasn't near him. Apparently, he had run into a wall because he was playing and he was running around. And by the time I realized, there was this huge bump on his eyebrow. I don't know. It's not easy. Like emotionally, and he was crying. And sometimes you wish you can take the pain and make them okay, but it's not possible. So you just have to soothe them. And he wouldn't even allow me to put the ice pack on his eyebrow. But eventually it went down. And the next minute he was running again. So sometimes you wonder, didn't you just learn from what just happened? But it's fun and it's scary at the same time. Okay, so I would also say that for milestones, they are all different. When I mean milestones, like maybe crawling, sitting, walking, they all come at different age ranges. So sometimes you read that your child will walk by 1, and maybe your child is 1 year, 2 months, 3 months, and is still not walking. I would say those were the things I read that weren't so accurate for me, because my son had his own milestones. He started walking at 11 months, and when maybe I had read that he would walk as 1, so maybe I wasn't expecting, even though he had started crawling and everything, he walked fast, and so we had to put up everything because he was picking stuff and all that. So sometimes you weren't ready for what was coming, because you had set certain timelines for him, but he either did it earlier or later, and which is just fine because it's a whole range. So that was it. So challenging aspect would be maybe when they have accidents. I remember his circumcision experience, and it was also not funny at all. Baby will cry through the night, and you don't even know what you can do to soothe them. So challenging aspects have been when maybe he's ill, he's not well, he's not eating for reasons where you don't even, he's fine and everything, but he's just not eating. These are some of the challenging things too. So the most rewarding, I'll say that because you have this mandate to raise a life, to raise a child, the responsibility that it comes with it, I think it's a huge calling, It's something that you shouldn't take lightly, because you have a life to shape, you have a life to mold. So I would say that that's what rewards me, when you see that maybe a lesson that you have taught your child is being used, is being applied. He's able to say thank you and sorry, and and it all starts from the home. So I know husbands are also doing an amazing job, but I feel that a mother's calling is precious, and it shouldn't be taken lightly at all.